Hello, and thank you for joining us on Chicago Tonight Black Voices. I'm Brandis Friedman. On the show tonight,
if this ends, next August, they're ripped out of those schools.
Students at private schools across Illinois are at risk of losing their scholarships. Amanda Vinicky has the latest from Springfield. Food insecurity is on the rise. How Chicagoans are working to put food on the table ahead of the holiday season.
This is to get back to the community, to give them an opportunity to do it. I didn't have those camps growing up.
And you might know him as the Grandyman. We show you how a three-time MLB All-Star is giving back to local kids. And now to some of today's top stories. As the veto session in Springfield winds down, lawmakers have yet to pass legislation that would allow Chicago's elected school board to go forward. There's a deal on a map of districts, something that had been controversial, but how to elect the board is still complicated. There's a dispute over whether Chicago voters should elect the whole board next year or whether it should be gradual, meaning the mayor would get to appoint half the members. Representative Ann Williams told colleagues at a hearing a phase-in makes the most sense.
So that way, everybody would, in those 10 districts, would get to vote. And that was a priority I heard from many of my colleagues, stakeholders, and community members. We want everyone to feel like they have a stake in the future of the Chicago Public Schools in day one, right out of the gate.
Lawmakers say they hope to reach an agreement soon so potential candidates can make plans to run. Amanda Vinicky will have more from Springfield in a few minutes. Survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking will be able to access free cell phones from the Cook County Sheriff's Department.
One of the primary ways the abuser has control over the victim is their phones. They usually insist that their phone service is paid for by them, so they have control over it. They insist that the phone has the tracking element attached to it, so they can track them at all time. And they have the passwords, so the ability to go in all the time and find out what the victim has been doing.
Sheriff Tom Dart and his office are partnering with 911 Cell Phone Bank to provide the prepaid phones in a pilot program. The sheriff's office says each year staff provides services to more than 100 survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking, and 38% of them don't have cell phones. Up next, the fate of Illinois' tax credits for private school scholarships program. Amanda Vinicky is live from Springfield right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, is made possible in part by Fifth Third Bank and by the support of these donors.
At Fifth Third, we believe when diverse voices are heard and empowered, communities are made stronger, lives are made better, and the future holds greater promise for all. That's why we're proud to support Chicago Tonight Black Voices. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can drive change.
It's down to the wire for Illinois' Invest in Kids program. And so far, state lawmakers are not showing an appetite to come to its rescue. The program gives income tax credits to donors whose contributions pay for low-income students to attend private schools. Amanda Vinicky joins us now live from the State House. Amanda, why is this program on the brink?
Well, Brandis, I have talked to some true believers that really are holding out for a Hail Mary, and that is what it is going to take. Even some of its staunchest supporters admit that this program really is all but dead, but that is not due to a lack of interest. You have nearly 10,000 students attending private and trade schools across Illinois thanks to these scholarships from Invest in Kids, and advocates say that at least double that are trying to get one. They're on a waiting list. Now, so if it's not interest, what is it? Well, really, this goes back that this was set up to be an experiment. This was a priority for former Governor Bruce Rauner, who, by the way, is long gone. He's a resident of Florida now. This was never a landmark program for Governor J.B. Pritzker, who really has remained on the sidelines here. And it doesn't have strong, real advocates in Democratic leadership here. In fact, really, it's just the opposite, because unions, teachers' unions, see this as a backdoor to vouchers, and they are really putting on pressure with their Democratic allies to allow this program to end.
So, Amanda, what does this mean then for students who are receiving these scholarships now?
Well, without funding, it means that those scholarships are going to run out. They'll finish the school year, but then next year, will there be money for them to attend? It could be on these private schools to privately fundraise, something that they say that they are doing, but it is not as easy without this tax credit. I also spoke with a Catholic leader who told me that if this program does go away, there is an expectation that some private schools are going to close. Another potential consequence, there is a prediction that there could be a last-minute surge in donations this month in December before the program would expire, as you have maybe some individuals trying to take a last-minute advantage of getting that tax credit.
Amanda, also, how does this impact Black students in particular?
Well, Brandis, that has been a real point of the discussion here. And you have backers saying that this is going to, in particular, harm Black students who, for whatever reason, don't want to attend the private or the public school that is near them, be it that it is low performing or they were bullied, what have you, but that they might be forced to leave that private school because they can't afford to attend going forward. But then you also have critics who say that not enough of these scholarships are going to students of color. There had been a compromise on the table that would seek to really improve that data, get more scholarships going to students of color, in particular Black students, and that would be by giving a bigger tax credit to donors whose money funds scholarships to students from underserved communities, including many in Chicago that are home to families of color.
So, Amanda, what's next?
Well, Brandis, what's next is there has been actually a lot of action surrounding Invest in Kids these 2 weeks of the veto session, even just these past couple of days. But that has really all been in the form of rallies, as you have families and students like these Chicago brothers who are beseeching lawmakers to save our scholarships.
It changed our lives, our direction, and opened the pathway to success. Without the extension of the Invest in Kids Act and the tax credit scholarship, it will be catastrophic.
Now, Governor J.B. Pritzker has said that he would sign an extension for Invest in Kids if it reaches his desk, but that is a big if. Pritzker has not been involved in negotiations, something that Republicans say is inappropriate. They say he should be involved here. And again, another big if is you could see the House is empty. They have adjourned for the day. That means that there is just one single scheduled session day before the end of the calendar year. And so barring any last minute, as I said at the beginning, barring a last minute Hail Mary, then that means that Invest in Kids is going to essentially be able to let go. It will expire, it will fade by the end of the year. Advocates do say that they want to try again, however, come 2024, they'd be doing so from scratch.
Like you said, Amanda, it looks like a lot more on this particular issue happening outside of the Capitol building than actually inside. Of course, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Amanda Vinicky in Springfield, thank you. Up next, as the nation faces growing food insecurity, how Chicagoans are helping put food on the table. Stay with us. Thanksgiving usually calls for filling your stomach with turkey, mashed potatoes, lots of dessert. But for many, it's not that simple. According to the Greater Chicago Food Depository, 1 in 5 households in the Chicago metro area are facing food insecurity. Meanwhile, a national report found that 17 million households were food insecure at some point in 2022, a signal that food insecurity is on the rise. Joining us now with more on this are Jill Rockman, Chief Operating Officer with the Greater Chicago Food Depository, Angela Taylor, Wellness Coordinator for the Garfield Park Community Council, Audra Wilson, President and CEO of the Schreiber Center on Poverty Law and a member of the Illinois Commission to End Hunger, and Reggie Guy, Director of the Senior Commodity Box Program with the Woodlawn Community Food Pantry. Thanks to all 4 of you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Jill Rockman, starting with you, please. As we said, the holidays are quickly approaching. Give us a sense of what the need looks like right now.
Well, as you opened the story, the need is increasing. What we saw in the report that came out about the increasing need in 2022 is exactly what we saw at the Greater Chicago Food Depository, an increase from 21 to 22. And while we would all say those results were disappointing and disheartening, and we did not want to see those, it was not surprising. We have seen the increase in need and we've responded to it. And it is our goal to continue to do that in 2023 as we continue to see the increase in need.
Audra Wilson, give us a sense, if you would, how would you compare how hunger in our country looks compared to hunger in developing nations?
So first and foremost, a lot of people don't acknowledge that hunger is a crisis in the United States because we don't think of it in the same way as we think of other countries. But the fact is there are so many families that are experiencing the inability to pay for their groceries, the inability, sometimes they're skipping meals, they're in locations where they're not getting access to quality food, so it's easier to get chips and very unhealthy foods than it is to get fresh produce. So this is how hunger manifests itself in the United States, and food insecurity manifests in the United States. And even though it does transcend race and ethnicity, unfortunately it does disproportionately impact communities of color.
The Census Bureau's recent poverty report showed that poverty rose to 12.2% in 2022, more than double from 2021. What do you think the cause of this is, and how does that tie into food insecurity?
Well, it ties directly into the ending of the pandemic-related benefits that were extended for those families who were most in need. So it is not a surprise that you're seeing a direct correlation with the drop in the end of those benefits, especially this year when the emergency benefits for SNAP were discontinued for Illinois residents come February. So our panelists can even talk about the fact that you see the immediate uptick in the number of people who are going to pantries. And this doesn't even include the increase of migrants who have come to the Chicago area who are also putting probably some stress on the pantries. So unfortunately, it's not a coincidence.
Right. And we're definitely going to come back to both of those issues that you mentioned with regard to the pandemic era benefits coming to an end, as well as the influx of migrants into the community. Reggie, you've been helping directly feed hundreds of people in your community. How would you say the need has changed from a year ago?
Oh, the need has changed drastically from a year ago. As you guys stated, with the pandemic benefits season, people need food. We see a problem in our community of underemployment and unemployment. These two factors directly affect our communities. People have to choose between buying food or paying for housing, buying food or paying for medical services. So this is really impacting our community, and that's why the need for food has grown so much over the past year.
Would you say the demographics of some of the people that you serve have changed?
Yes, so when we started the food pantry in 2019, our demographic was mainly seniors, 60 and over, about 90%. Now today, we see 50% seniors and 50% young people from the ages of 18 to 55. Our demographics have changed as well. We were predominantly all black food pantry service, all black residents in Woodline. Today, with the influx of migrants, we also have a high Latino and migrant population as well coming to our food pantry to receive food that they need.
I was just going to build on both of those statements. The decline of the strengthening of the safety net a factor, but the fact that it's happening at the same time that inflation's at an all-time high. Yes. It's just the intersection of those two is creating the increased need that we're seeing, and both are critical factors.
Yes.
Angela, you all opened a grocery store pop-up this week. Tell us why you felt there was a need for that in Garfield Park.
Absolutely no grocery store.
Wow.
In any direction, 1 mile north, south, east, or west, you will not find a quality grocery store or grocery store at all in the Garfield Park community. We've been doing food security, addressing that from the issue from growing food, because we've hosted a neighborhood farmers market for the 11 years, trying to teach community where healthy food comes from, which is in the ground. Mm-hmm. And we all have the ability to be able to garner some of that ourselves right where we live. We don't need a full backyard. You can grow tomatoes, cucumbers in a container. But the need for the grocery store was because of the recent closure of the Save-A-Lot due to the renovations, having them to close early, being close to the holiday. We couldn't just sit on the sideline and not address that. Nowhere. You got to get on a bus, take a lift, costs additional funds
Leave
to
the
be
community
able
to go grocery
have
shopping.
access.
And so, of course, it's different. This is a grocery store, not a food pantry where food is given away without cost. How are you all pricing items so that, healthy foods are still affordable to the community?
We're having competitive prices based on the items that we've received. We have a great team of young people that's doing the research to see what the prices are across. Our community has developed a grocery store initiative of community partners that have been meeting at least the last year to figure out and collect data from the community about what type of grocery store they would like to see in the community and what type of food items they would like to have. Even at the pop-up Here and Now that we have, each and every customer is greeted with customer service, and a conversation is had with them to take that deeper dive. How many people are you shopping for? What type of products are you looking for that you don't see here today, so that we can incorporate them into our inventory? And as like before in the past, we were open maybe 1 day a week or 2 days a week. We're open 4 days a week, and we will be running through the end of the year. And we're hoping that that grocery store that we have in the community is be open by that time.
Jill, why do you think food insecurity continues to rise despite being on the other side of the pandemic somewhat?
Well, I think what we've seen is the impact of the pandemic, people losing jobs, inflation. Those issues don't pivot quickly to solutions. And so they're long-standing solutions. So I do think it's the intersection of those things. I think the inflation is critical. I would also say we look at where it's happening. And so when you peel the onion back on the research, you'll see that households with children are more likely to be food insecure. In Chicago, Black households with children are 33% of those. And so we have to look at the issues of poverty. We have to look at the issues of inequity. We have to look at the disinvestment and then address those issues as solutions. And that's part of the focus for the food depository. We, of course, provide food, and we've elevated our response in the food response, but it's also strategies around economic development that we think are critical.
Advocates, as we've discussed, have stressed, rolling back those pandemic-era public assistance programs like the child tax credit, emergency SNAP benefits, and the impact that that's had on food insecurity and the families that need it. Audra, what's the likelihood that Washington reinstates any of that?
Well, we're going to keep fighting no matter what. I mean, the fact of the matter is we know that poverty and hunger, these are policy choices. This is not any failing of any individual, but a failing of our system. And so we as advocates continue to push because we've seen the actual benefits of an infusion of money, infusion of food, investments that we're making in people. And so you don't need any more evidence than what you've seen with child poverty rates, overall poverty rates, hunger rates declining during the pandemic. So the evidence is right there. So we're continuing to push for things, for example, like the strengthening of the SNAP program, which has been the cornerstone of a hunger protection program, or protecting against hunger in the United States. We need to bolster our child nutrition programs because we've seen their impact, especially during the pandemic, when you had school breakfast, school lunch, and after-school programs that were feeding kids that wouldn't otherwise be fed if they did not have that support. And Jill said this so eloquently, and that is how we really have to address those root causes of poverty. Because at the end of the day, what we're talking about is when people are impoverished, when people are struggling with acquiring any sorts of monies to be able to support themselves and their families, then you're going to see that correlation between the rates of hunger that are rising and food insecurity. And so we really need to go to those root causes, making sure that people are being paid a living wage, that people have access to quality health care, that people have access to affordable housing, because they all intersect.
You mentioned health care. Reggie, your pantry is focused not only on feeding people, but mental health. How do the two go hand in hand?
Yes. So we take a holistic approach to the food insecurity issues that we have in our community. So now, not only do we have our food distribution twice a week, but we also partner with organizations such as University of Chicago Medicine to provide vaccination clinics, to also provide health clinics as well, and health seminars. Currently, we're working with University of Chicago to address the growing mental health issues that we have in our community. A lot of our food pantry clients are going through a lot of different things in their life and don't know how to deal with it, and don't know the different resources to go and look to get help. So we want to bring those resources to our community to make sure they can have them at the food pantry, as well as getting mental and health seminars and health services.
So we know Mayor Johnson is exploring opening a city-owned grocery store in areas that are food deserts. Angela, do you think a model like that might work?
It could. If the powers that be pay attention to the community. It's one thing to come in the community and have conversations and people speak up and they want to be involved. And then it goes away and it comes back that it's not reflective of what those communities' needs are. We're culturally diverse here in Chicago and we all have needs. But if the government comes in and listens to what we have to say and then provide us with nothing to create that, I kind of lean into it's up to us to stand up and step out for ourselves to generate something happening and then hope that they will get behind and support us.
Jill, what's your take on a city-owned grocery store?
Well, it's funny, I spent the early part of my career in the grocery industry, and so I do feel like it's possible. You know, there are issues around cost and scale, but they're all solvable. There are small and large grocery stores all around the country that do well. I think your point about listening to what the community wants is really what companies do. They listen and they then stock what's needed, and they are already doing that work. So I assume that it's possible and applaud the efforts to make that happen.
Reggie, 10 seconds. Thoughts? Grocery store?
I think it's a great idea by Mayor Johnson to come up with a solution for our problems. We saw a mad exodus of the big box stores, especially after he was elected. So I hope he comes up with a great solution to help with the food insecurities on the west and south sides of Chicago.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. My thanks to all four of you, Jill Rockman, Angela Taylor, Audra Wilson, and Reggie Guy for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, how a retired pro baseball player is giving back to Chicago kids. But first, a look at the weather. Curtis Granderson spent 16 seasons playing Major League Baseball. Now, he's passing down those years of experience to the next generation of players and inspiring them to pursue college. Chicago Tonight's Joanna Hernandez tells us about the Grandyman's Baseball Academy.
I was in their shoes, and I was also in your shoes. I started playing when I was 6 years old.
Curtis Granderson is retired from Major League Baseball, but he's still making moves on the field.
These are the highest level of baseball players that you can become without going to a professional level, and all of them are striving to become pros.
Granderson is the founder of Chicago Baseball and Educational Academy. He runs it at his alma mater, the University of Illinois at Chicago.
We built the stadium where we're sitting right now in 2014, and then 2 years later, like, okay, how do we get the community access to this amazing view? I call it the best view in baseball.
The organization runs a variety of camps, clinics, and tournaments for kids across Chicago all year long.
Everyone talks about how segregated this city is. And baseball and sport, I feel like, is a really good neutralizer, bringing people together.
The three-time MLB All-Star says the program's mission is to empower youth by playing hard and dreaming big.
And when I was playing Major League Baseball, I was one of a handful of players with a college degree. So I knew the importance of education and also giving back. I didn't know it was called giving back at the time. I would just watch my parents do it.
Look up. 8-year-old Cameron Vasquez is already thinking big. Do you want to play professionally?
Yes.
Yes? How come?
So I could be like Babe Ruth.
Oh, you like Babe Ruth?
Yeah. Too Fat, he was the one who made us put black paint under our faces.
UIC baseball player James Harris is one of the coaches in the organization.
It's really just about giving back for me. It's always fun hanging out with kids like this. They're eager to learn.
The college senior started playing when he was a kid, now working to score a spot in the big leagues.
That's definitely one of the big dreams for me, making it to the league, telling my mom she doesn't have to work anymore.
Curtis Granderson believes one way to get to the big leagues is through education. Currently, less than 7% of players on MLB rosters are black. That's according to Central Florida's Institute for Diversity and Ethics in Sport.
This past year in the Major League Baseball draft, 80% of the players drafted were from college. So if we're going to draft players from college, we got to get more players into college. We have to get more players of color into college.
For some kids, this is the first time they've stepped onto a college campus, an experience Granderson says inspires kids to become a student athlete.
Now I'm in a position where I have the ability to help other people fulfill their dreams. And it may not necessarily be at the major league level. It could be becoming a scout, becoming an umpire, being the first to go to college, being the first to graduate college.
Anyone want to play for the Cubs? Yeah. Anybody want to play for the White Sox?
For Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, I'm Joanna Hernandez.
They seemed a little divided on who they're going to play for. Granderson says all camps in training are meant to be affordable and accessible for families. If you'd like to learn more about Chicago Baseball and Educational Academy's programming, you can visit our website. And that's our show for tonight. Join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10 for Chicago Tonight Latino Voices. Longtime undocumented immigrants are pushing for work permits as new arrivals are granted temporary legal status. And we tell you where the Biden administration's proposal to offer health care to DACA recipients stands. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that is committed to supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives throughout the legal profession.